It's the story of one God who clawed his way to the top, absorbed the competition, while his followers rewrote the origin story. So now that Yahweh's wearing Baal's thunderbolt, El's crown, and Asherah's wedding ring, let's take a look at all the gods he had to beat to get there. So let's rewind to Yahweh's first major showdown, the Egyptian pantheon. We're talking about Ra, Osiris, Isis, Horus, Anubis, Thoth, the whole squad.
Nakmet, Sobek, Sakmet, Sokar, Salkat, Reshpu.
Now you probably remember the story of Exodus. It's Moses versus Pharaoh, 10 plagues, yada yada. But guess what the Bible actually says? God himself declares, on all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgments. I am the Lord. All the gods of Egypt. He doesn't say those aren't real. He boasts that he's gonna punish them. If those gods are just lifeless idols, why bother executing judgment on them? Are we supposed to really believe that he's executing judgment on cardboard cutouts? You don't execute judgment on a rock. This is God declaring war on a rival pantheon. In fact, after the Israelites escape, Moses sings, "Who is like you, O Lord, among the gods?" Among the gods. The Bible straight up admits here that there are other gods. This is not me talking, this is in black and white, but it gets crazier. Because let's talk about Pharaoh's magicians. Moses throws down his staff and boom, it becomes a snake. Cool, right? But guess what? The Pharaoh sorcerers did the same thing with their magic. The Bible says Pharaoh then summoned wise men and sorcerers, and the Egyptian magicians also did the same things by their secret arts. Each one threw down his staff and it became a snake. Okay, now to be fair, Moses' snake ate the other ones, but do you see how this is showing the superiority of Yahweh? Not that he's the only God. And guess what? Pharaoh's magicians, they turned water to blood too, and summoned frogs as well. But think about it, the Bible doesn't say it was some kind of trick or illusion. If Egypt's gods and magic was supposed to be total bunk, how are these priests pulling off real paranormal stunts? The Bible is telling us Egyptian deities had some power, but not as much as Yahweh. Mainstream scholars confirm that early Israel was not strictly monotheistic, they just monopolized Yahweh. The Stanford Encyclopedia of Philosophy says, while the existence of other gods was not denied, Israel was to worship no god but Yahweh. The early Israelites didn't deny the gods existed, they just picked a side. Yahweh was the God of Israel. Other nations had their own gods. It was like ancient divine Pokemon. Gotta choose your god and battle the rest. But don't get too comfortable here, because the next god on Yahweh's hit list is Moloch. And this one eats children. And what Yahweh does next might make you question everything. Okay, Moloch is arguably the most demonized deity in the Bible. Moloch is associated with the Ammonites and is infamous as the god who supposedly demanded child sacrifices. The Bible repeatedly thunders against Molech. Do not give any of your children to be sacrificed to Molech. Whoever gives any of his offspring to Moloch shall be put to death. Okay, now some scholars have raised the question, did this really happen or was it propaganda? Think of the satanic panic when the church said your kids are gonna start worshiping Satan if they play Dungeons and Dragons. See, accusing your enemies of baby killing is a time-honored propaganda move. Even today, conspiracy theorists accuse opponents of sacrificing children to Moloch. But did that actually happen? Some researchers in the last decades argued that biblical writers exaggerated or fabricated the sacrifice claims to make the Ammonites look extra evil, thereby justifying Israel wiping them out. But the truth is, we don't really know. But whether it's propaganda or not, Moloch was acknowledged as a real deity of the Ammonites. King Solomon, Mr. Wisdom himself, went off the rails in his later years and actually worshipped Moloch. 1 Kings 11:7 says, "Then Solomon built a high place for Chemosh, the god of Moab, and for Molech, the god of the Ammonites, on the mountain east of Jerusalem." So think about that. That's the king of Israel building a shrine to Moloch in the site of the temple. Talk about sacrilege. The text treats Moloch as a foreign god that seduced even Solomon, the king of Israel, Yahweh's golden boy. And the prophets, they lost it. Jeremiah, Zephaniah, the whole angry prophet crew is screaming about Moloch like it's the divine apocalypse. So Yahweh basically says, child sacrifice? Hell no, that's barbaric. That's how those other gods roll, not me. And that would be great if it were true. Because the irony here is that while Yahweh condemns Moloch for demanding child sacrifice, Yahweh does almost the exact same thing. Let's talk about Abraham. Yahweh literally tells Abraham to take his son and sacrifice him. Now, people point out that God stopped him at the last minute, as if that makes everything okay, which it absolutely does not. But he tested Abraham's loyalty with the same brutal logic. Prove your devotion, give me your child.
Brace yourself, lad.
No, wait. Look, wait.
Yes, Lord?
It was a test.
But it gets way worse. Let me explain. The Bible describes how Jephthah, Israel's judge, Yahweh's champion, was fighting the Ammonites, the very people associated with Moloch, the child-eating god of fire. And Jephthah makes a deal with Yahweh in Judges 11. He says, if you give the Ammonites into my hands, whatever comes out of the door of my house to meet me when I return in triumph from the Ammonites will be the Lord's, and I will sacrifice it as a burnt offering. All right, well then who walks out? His daughter. And what does Yahweh do? Nothing. So Jephthah kills her. A literal burnt virgin sacrifice to Yahweh. How sick is that? When Moloch does it, it's evil. When Yahweh does it, it's a test of faith or some shit. Same fire, different branding. All right. Now, if you thought Moloch was bad, buckle up, because next on Yahweh's hit list is Chemosh, the god of the Moabites. And if you thought we were done with sacrifice, no, not even close. So Chemosh is the god of the Moabites. Remember I just mentioned Solomon building an altar? Well, he built one for Chemosh too, right alongside Molech's. The Bible calls Chemosh the abomination of Moab, and it only gets worse. Okay, let's talk about King Meshach of Moab. Israel is fighting him. It's not going well for Meshach. He's cornered and desperate, and he's losing, so what does he do? He climbs the city wall, grabs his firstborn son, the heir to the throne, and burns him alive as a sacrifice to Chemosh. Yeah, that happened. The Bible says this, then he took his eldest son that should have reigned in his stead and offered him for a burnt offering upon the wall. And there was great wrath against Israel, and they departed from him and returned to their own land. Okay, wait. Did you catch that? Whose wrath exactly? Many interpreters think it implies that Chemosh answered with wrath and Israel had to retreat. It doesn't explicitly say Chemosh's wrath, but something made Israel back off once that sacrifice happened. The Moabite king essentially performed a Molech-style offering to Chemosh, and the Bible implies that it worked in the sense that Moab avoided total defeat. If that's the case, well then holy shit, the Bible just may have quietly indicated a foreign god's power turned the tide of battle. Yeah, it's a bit ambiguous, but either way, it shows the Moabites truly believed in Chemosh's power, and the Israelites were spooked by it.
Okay, I want a good clean fight, guys. No punches below the belt, holding, or miracles.